Hey y'all, welcome back to Twin Oaks Family Farm in rural southeast Ohio, USA. Thanks for joining us. We are in the grower pen with the Cornish cross meat chickens that are currently in production for homegrown top quality poultry. There's 98 in this group, and wanted to spend a few minutes talking about the only constant in raising meat birds is change. And so some of the things that you'll see fluctuate when you're raising meat birds, thought we'd just try to mention some of those. So unfortunately, the worst news is one of the things you will most likely see fluctuate when you're raising meat birds is the number of birds in the flock. And really, unfortunately, that number is not going to increase, but it's likely going to decrease. It's very unlikely that the number will absolutely stay the same and that all the birds that we start will survive the entire production length and make it to processing. So they are susceptible to leg problems, they are susceptible to heart problems. Naturally, they're also susceptible to any kind of pathogens that could be in their environment, and there's a variety of them. So those are things you would try to manage successfully to keep the birds as healthy and as mobile as they could possibly be. So, we try to feed well throughout production. We try to make sure they always have clean drinking water. We try to make sure that they have ambient temperature and ambient conditions that are suitable to their needs. And that's really a tough one because when they first move in, they need to have ambient conditions about 95 degrees. And then as they get older, they can tolerate a little wider range, but they still never ideally really want to be ambient conditions less than about 70 degrees. So that can be difficult. They could probably tolerate temperatures down to about 40 degrees when they're well feathered like this, but that is a strain on them. So to thrive, they really need to not ever have to endure conditions lower than about 70 degrees. But the amount of space, so that's a biggie. Like the number of birds that you're actually raising and managing will probably fluctuate, will probably decrease, and that's disappointing because something that we want to see is quality of life in the birds, and we want to see them all make it through their production cycle. And from the financial standpoint as well, every time a bird dies before processing, even if you're raising the birds for household consumption, every time a bird dies, the average cost of every other bird just increased. So, mortality does increase production costs in that respect. So the number of birds can fluctuate, so be prepared for that. Also, the amount of space they need can fluctuate. So when we first started this flock, where these 4 heat lamps are, we had those actually pulled in more compact, more together, and we didn't have these 2 heat lamps out here. So where we see these 4 heat lamps, we kind of created, we call it a blanket of virtual warmth, and that's all the space the 102 birds needed originally. But as they grow, they need more space, and so we had to, in this case, actually add supplemental heat lamps so that they could spread out more but still have a warm place to spread out too. And then even just in a day's time, like in the course of 24 hours, we do a lot of adjusting of the heat lamp. So like this heat lamp is still about knee high, and over the course of the day we had to raise the ones on that side to about hip and waist height. And so as the evening cools off, we'll probably have to lower those again a little bit. But right now, actually, they're not seeking the heat lamps. So we probably will leave the heat lamps as they are, because you can see a lot of them are out toward the perimeter of the pen, and they're very content. And so we've got them over here as well. So as the night cools down, if they feel cooler, they'll gravitate toward where the supplemental heat is coming down from those heat lamps if they want to warm up. So, okay, so those are a couple things that can change. The number of birds that you're managing and the supplemental heat that you provide for them will have to be kind of reconfigured as they grow to accommodate the fact that they need a little more room. Another thing that's going to change is probably your equipment for them. They're resting. So we started off with these waters like this and these feeders like this. And it doesn't take very long for them to outgrow the capacity of those, really, is what it comes down to. I think we started with like maybe 6 of these feeder trays and 4 of these single gallon water dispensers. And of course, you can add more and more of those, but once they start eating and drinking through those really quickly, it's much easier from a management standpoint to just add bigger feeders and waters into their space. So these are big. This is what we end up switching to, these waters. We really like these 5-gallon waters with removable lids, so we can just pour the water in from the top. And we switched this time to these feeders. My husband made a pair of these long feeders, and it's the first time we're trying them, but they've worked out well with the birds. We also have the large metal feeders that are seen over there, and so so actually the actual equipment will fluctuate some, you know, from the equipment that accommodates smaller birds to the equipment that accommodates bigger birds. And another thing that will change about that is probably the configuration of where you put the feeders and waters in their space. So like initially in here, we had, for example, this feeder that you're seeing right there running long ways in between. Well, I can't zoom out enough, but it was running long ways in between the rows of the supplemental lights. So where you have 3 lights on the far side there, then the feeder was running parallel to the lights, and then we had the other one like setting out here, running parallel in the pen. So that worked for a while, but then now they're getting even bigger, and it was difficult for them to maneuver around that long tray going the length of the pen. So we decided to try moving those back against the wall. So far it's working out. So those are some examples of things that change